A quick introduction. As part of the ERA, we thought it would be a very good project for everyone to do to share our germination techniques. A number of reasons. One is we can learn from each other for certain species. Two, it gives us a very good idea of what everyone else is growing. So it sort of becomes a database of plants as well that are in different people's nurseries, which is very interesting. We're always looking for new plants for different projects and things like that. So somehow it doubles as that, but by doing this as a germination techniques, it gives us a clear idea of which species people are growing in different places. With certain plants, we all have different techniques sometimes. So we're also interested in gathering different techniques and learning from each other about particular species. Some species are difficult in different regions. Like the example I give is Terminalia paniculata. Down in the south, we have copious amounts of seeds that we're finding in the Eastern Ghats, but we're never managing to germinate them. But apparently, as you go further north, it's very easy to germinate. So perhaps the seeds are not setting, the seeds are just not developing properly. So that also leads us to eventually to other interesting questions to understand why in some places seeds are viable and in some places they're not viable. And I think with climate change and things like that, it will be interesting to understand that a little deeper so that we can understand if forests are regenerating naturally or if they have the potential to regenerate naturally, or if in the past, for some reason, they were able to set good seeds and these days they can't. So all of that can sort of eventually come out of the data that we put together as a group. So the idea is to try and keep it reasonably simple, but quite standardized. And so what we've done, if I click on the sheet here, you can see this is what we call the Oroville data. So for our nursery, we created this format. So we can just take, one example, the Albizia Lebec, which probably a lot of us know. And so we sort of, you clean and soak the seeds overnight, so directly in bags or beds. And then a little bit more information. So you've got other comments, if they can suffer in transplant, or we also have a virus that comes into the nursery, particularly on this species. So that sort of information is really useful for all of us. And then eventually we can also ask people, how do they solve problems? And then germination time, just so that we have a clear idea of how long we should be waiting. Another little anecdote, for us, we had a species called Chionanthus zeylanica. And when we started sort of collecting seeds from sacred groves, Chionanthus was a tree that we found in 1 or 2 groves, not very many. And we first sort of found it, and then we found it germinating little seedlings under a mother tree. So we knew the seed was viable, but every time we would collect the seed, nothing would happen. And we tried all sorts of things, whether we were soaking it in cow dung or cracking it or anything you could think of, we were trying, and nothing worked. But then one time we realized that we'd left it in a bed and forgotten about it. And it took, and after 1 year or about 14 months, it actually started to germinate. So things like that can be very useful information for people starting out. If you know that your seed's going to take a year to germinate, and we still do that. We just collect vast amounts of it and leave it in beds, and after a year it comes up. So that sort of information is very, very useful for people that are starting nurseries. So that's also cool. And then, yeah, we sort of have a basic idea of what you do. So we collect this information. So using the Google Sheet, we can create strings. So you can add it all together and you can just get one string. Again, if you look at the new one, and then what we've sort of tried to do is have pick lists. And this we can adapt as we go along. So if people are finding that the cleaning and preparation is not, the way that you do things is not seen here, then we can adapt and change as we go along. That's exactly what this process is about. We've tried to keep it, again, down to about 5 or 6 different things, but obviously we can add and change. But so, do you clean it and soak it, or do you clean and then scratch the outer kernel of the seed? Do you treat it with acid, et cetera, et cetera? So there's sort of there with the cleaning and the soaking, or the cleaning and the preparation. And then for your soaking, some seeds don't require, some do, some overnight, some in cow dung, etc., etc. And then at the bottom, you'll always see other comments. So if there's something that you don't capture within those, within one of those choices, then you can always go across and put extra information in the other file, in the other column. Sowing. So sowing, do you do it in coca peat and keep it moist? We have a number of seeds like pterocarpus, for example. We keep them very moist, and then they germinate very easily. And then from there, we pick them out. Literally, we just pick them up and put them into the bags. We keep the seeds very loose and just in coca peat. Some are on paper, the very small seeds, the ficuses, for example. And then do you do it in seed beds or trays? Also directly in the bag. Some of the larger seeds that we know for sure have a high germination rate. We just put straight in bags so that we avoid any damage to the roots during transplanting. Transplantation. Again, when do you transplant the seed from your seed bed? So assuming that you're growing them in a seed bed or a seed tray, some species we transplant as soon as the cotyledons are fully open. Other ones we leave them until we have more leaves. I mean, particularly things like the Diospyros family, which has a very quick tap root to go down, and often with you have a large seed. So with those, we're very quick to transplant because we know as soon as they've germinated, it's good to transplant them so we avoid root damage. But other ones with a more fibrous root system, we're happier to leave longer. So this is what we sort of in the transplantation. For germination, again, these are just sort of rough times. And you've got, like, it should fit into one of those categories. And if there's something very specific that you've understood, then it can also add more information in the column. Germination percentage, when we look at that, we get into a bit of a sort of a dubious situation when we're talking about is it very low, medium, leave? So this is a little bit more what to say, subjective. But I think very high just means everything germinating. High means you collect seeds and it's very easy. Very low means it doesn't really happen unless you're very lucky. Low means you have to collect a lot of seeds and you get a few, and then you've sort of got these other medium and medium to low. So the two at the extremes are, these two and these two are very easy to define, and medium to low is something like that. No? Nursery care, there's no pick list. It's just what do you do in the nursery to look after them? Do you keep them in the shade? Some plants will be better growing in the shade. Some will need to grow for at least 6 months in the shade, and then you can harden them off outside. So information like that, what's happening within the nursery. Do you water? Do you keep them very moist? Do you let them dry out? Things like that. Other comments, like I say, that's really just catches anything that doesn't come up through the pick lists or anywhere else that you think is important information that someone who's starting out or someone who's interested could learn something from that. And then we have a column towards the right, which then just talks about any notes on vegetative propagation. So do they come from cuttings, air layering, that sort of information, which again is quite easy. And if you do put information there, it's nice to say it's sort of, again, if you're using cuttings, what size, what length, how deep in the soil are you actually putting the cuttings? Is it 1 centimeter or is it further, etc., etc. And then on the right-hand side, the L is actually just that sort of, we collate all the information and it adds itself up and creates a sort of just one simple string, which eventually we can, that'll be the information that will be visible on the website. So the idea is to collect this information and to, as soon as possible, get it up on the ERO website so that people can actually see this information and use the information. We consider it to be completely open source. So we're not hiding this information in any way. We want people to grow seeds, so we're trying to disseminate information. So that's the basic nuts and bolts of the whole thing. I think if you are adding your information in this format, then it's quite easy and self-explanatory. The other thing that we're quite happy to do is take other people's Excel sheets. So I know some of you may well also have this information already in Excel. And if you don't want to go through the process of putting it into this format, then there's people here at our botanical gardens that will do that work. And if they have questions, then obviously they would directly come back to you to kind of try and resolve those issues. So we would take your raw data or your data as it is in Excel, try to put it into this format. Wherever we had questions or just things we don't understand, we would come directly back to you and put that information up. So it means that if you've done the work already, you don't have to redo all of the inputting. If you would like to, that's also completely fine to input your own data. As the data goes live, it will be interesting for us to compare different species, and we'll try and set up an algorithm or something that then sort of shares that information around. So if we're finding that lots of people are dealing with similar species and having very different techniques, we can sort of then set up little messages to discuss those in particular, you know. And if anyone has any species that they can't germinate, that they're still struggling with, and we still have a number of those species, like Hugonia mystics is another one of those, we can also flag those on, as we set it up on the website, we can flag what we could call recalcitrant species, and ask people to help us solve problems that we all have. That, I think, in a nutshell, is what we're trying to do. The way we would do it is that this Google Sheet will be shared. Here you can see it says new data 1. And if, you know, again, if people are very comfortable with Google Sheets, then please go ahead and use the Google Sheet. What I would suggest at this point is that everybody who adds data to this collective sheet simply starts a new sheet. So you would go to, I'm not brilliant at Google Sheets, but basically you would create a copy of the sheet, no? Copy. And make a new sheet and then put your name on the sheet so that we know it's you that's putting the information into that sheet. So it's simply create a new sheet, put your name on it, and then add your data to that. Again, if it's us who's editing the sheet, we will do the same. We will simply take your Excel sheet and create something here with your name on it and start adding the data, so that we'll have a number of sheets that are all up. So we'll have Oroville and different people's names, and then once we've got all of that data, then we'll collate the data together and put it into a more usable format. But in the beginning, we don't edit each other's sheets. We just put our own sheets on this one, and then we can add it up, and then we see where we go next. So that would be the format. And if you want to send Excel sheets, you can send them to me or June, and then we will collate that and then open up a direct correspondence with you on that one. Once we've been going for a month or so, I think we would then probably just have another meeting, and everyone who's contributing, we'll have a little roundup and see where we are with all of these things. So now I'm seeing some chats. This is this specialty perfect. Oh, we're on to perfect for a new sheet. Click. Thank you, Faisal. You're amazing. Yeah, new sheet. Click on the plus sign on the bottom left. Excellent. But I want to copy the existing sheet, so I don't think that. So that's just adding a sheet. So can yeah, Arjun.
Paul, you'll click on that bottom arrow that is on new data 1.
Yeah.
And then you go duplicate.
Oh, right? Duplicate.
So just
fantastic. Simple as that. And then you can click on that and say Paul's data. Yeah. So that would be your sheet, and then you would start working on that. Fantastic. How long and frequently would the data be collected and sent? I think it depends. No, if you're actively working on your nursery and you can add every time you germinate a new seed. So it can be definitely an ongoing process. If you have already data from previous years' experience, then you add it all in one go, and then you can continuously add it. But I think once we've collected the data for everybody together, we can then set up on the website where people can just add 1 or 2 new species that they've worked on. I think that I'm running out of things to say. So Arjun, if you want to step in and add something, or if anyone else wants to say something, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think we can open up for questions if anyone has right now, and then. Paul, will it be useful to add something like a ecoregion or where they are germinating the species?
Yes, it would be good to have a little, absolutely. So it'd be good to have a little profile of each person where they're based and where their nursery information is coming from. That would, yes, of course. So again, if we have maybe we can create a little biodata sheet for everyone who's taking part in this, and we know where they are, and if we know their location and yeah, where their seeds are being collected roughly, that would be really useful and interesting. But we can create a map of the different locations for other people to see, because then they can also eventually you can home in on the germination techniques that are more applicable for your area, perhaps. So that's very good, Arjun. Yes.
I'll just add a column for that in the starting, and let me just delete.
Hi, Paul.
Yeah.
Priya here.
Hi, dear.
Hi, thanks for this. So we are working in the very arid region in south of Bengal.
Mhm.
We are doing a very extensive elephant corridor restoration project for about it's about a 5 to 10 years timeline.
Mm.
So I was just asking, it's just a curious question. In your sheet, should we add a column which like the region, it also talks about the climatic conditions, because many times germinations are kind of dependent on some of the rainfall times, and last year we had practically a huge deficit in Bengal, in fact, in terms of rains. So these are like, dependables and risk factors which might affect germination, right? So would that be a good idea to add that?
I think yeah, it's a very good idea. I think it's an excellent idea. We can, yeah, I think actually there when we can actually add a column for the species, and just maybe I mean, while you were talking, I was wondering whether we should actually just say when the seed is, when we're collecting the seed.
Yeah.
Because that would also be very interesting, no? Because we may have the same species, but we're actually maybe collecting the seeds at different times. I don't know.
Yeah.
We can get quite a lot of eco-region information. We can then like some of that information, but if we even include yeah, time of seed collection, that would be very interesting as well, I think. And that would also give us that kind of information that you're talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and maybe, suppose the seed collected, certain percentage has not germinated at all. Maybe, certain risk factors which might have played for that, in fact, for this outcome.
I think that you could put in the other column. No, if we've got this other column,
yeah,
that's sort of anecdotal information, because some seeds you'll have it for and some seeds you won't have it for. So anything like that is super valuable. Those anecdotal sort of stories about why it worked and why it didn't work or something, just hunches. I mean, this is also, seed germination is scientific, but there's also intuition involved.
Absolutely.
So any hunches or something like that would be, I think that's the really critical information that we can share as well.
Okay. And any soil conditions or, soil preparations which has gone into it?
I think for germination, we're talking about germination right now. So germination, we've said, do you put it in cocoa peat or do you put it in seed beds or seed trays? I think, yeah, it's interesting information. Again, I mean, at our nursery, we know which seeds you need to sort of put in a seed tray, which needs maybe special soil. And again, I think that can also come into other column, no? If there's something particular, or as in general, because seeds normally we just sow them in topsoil with no compost, for example. Because I mean, our general default, I would say, is that once you've cracked the code to get the seed to germinate, then it will germinate. Whether it then grows healthily in your nursery depends on your soil mix.
Right.
So this is information you can put in other.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey Paul, Aruna
Hi.
here.
Hey, Arun.
Hi, hi.
Sit up straight, boy. Get it. You're
I'm
lying
straight
on the
up.
floor or what?
No,
Looks
I'm
like you're
straight.
lying on the floor. Oh, you're sitting up straight. Oh, just
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah, so basically we are basically in the same ecoregion. So much of it, and I've taken much of the germination from the book, from even your but perhaps I can just say when I try to modify things and what worked or not. Right?
absolutely. I think that's the most important information is that you're improving upon the techniques that we've got, no? So anything
Yeah.
you're finding that we're saying, you know, so I think it's absolutely fantastic that you give your practical experience, no?
Right.
Really important.
Cool. And then I think mostly it's just I think the trickier part comes with some aftercare of some species, and so I'll just add that in the notes and stuff.
Yeah, add that in the other. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Super.
Hey, Paul, Fazalia.
Faisal.
I'm just wondering, so there's a lot of information we can share about cuttings as well.
Yeah.
So as of now, are we just going with the comments for
There's a
cuttings?
column. Yeah, I mean, we can develop it. I mean, we can develop it. I mean, you know, like if you feel that what are you saying, that you want to put more pick lists on it, or what do you feel?
So, for example, we've been trying to germinate Lania for a long time, Coromandelica, and then you had mentioned it. You've been doing it by cuttings for ages.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, it can be fit in the comments per area, but I don't know how, if we can have if we want a cuttings column or.
Well, there is a cuttings column there on the right. No, any notes on vegetative propagation, cuttings, air layering?
Okay, yeah. I didn't see that. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, no, I must have mumbled. So yeah, so there's that column, so that you can put the sort of initial information, and if we find there's lots of information going in there and it's getting too dense, then we can try and tease it apart into separate columns.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
So Ajay has just asked a question, which is cocoa peat with vermicompost best for seed germination? For some, it's okay, but for germination, you don't need so much compost. And for some seeds, if they get too moist, then they'll rot. So our default for germinating seed is pure topsoil, a sandy soil. And then as soon as it germinates, then we sort of tend to prick it out and put it into a more compost-rich soil. But there are some species that benefit from being moist the whole time. Like I was saying, for example, Pterocarpus, we basically just keep in a pile and keep it very moist with cocoa peat around it. So I would say that cocoa peat with vermicompost is good for some seeds, but generally not for a lot of other seeds, particularly small seeds, because they may well rot. Okay, we've got deafening silence now. Arjun, you have to speak when there's deafening silence, because otherwise I feel like everyone's gone off for a cup of tea because it's only me on the video.
Sure. I was going to ask, this time of seed collection like this, is that something that is fine for you? Like time of seed collection on a little bit about our nursery project in ecoregion on the top? Or
Yeah, time of seed collection is very good there. Yeah, it's brilliant.
and our nursery, one second, what is it?
And so with time of seed collection, you've got January. Yeah, maybe you just put, I think, yeah, if we can put the months Jan to Feb, or maybe
Yeah,
we don't have a
I'm
pick
taking a
list.
drop down for that. Yeah.
Okay, all right, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, but you're not going to just have 1 month. Sometimes some seeds are collected for 2 months, no, January to March, or
So we want to multiple one,
I
right?
don't. Yeah, I think it'll get too complex on a drop down. I think if
Checkbox, you can do checkbox and you
okay,
can
okay, brilliant. Checkbox is fantastic. Super.
Yeah, so
Um,
one more question. Are we going to do any photography or any photo data, or we don't need that for now?
At the moment, I think we start with this sort of, this is data collection. If you look at, I mean, I can show you what Oikos has done, which is a really beautiful
Yeah, I've
thing.
seen
You've seen
that.
Oikos's. I'll just put it up
Yeah.
on the screen. I'll just see if I can. I'll stop sharing and then just put that one up, so that people can see it. This is beautifully done. It's really it's just lovely. And eventually, long term, if we could aim for something like this,
Yeah.
it would be lovely to have that on the website, that you could then go from the raw data to something as clear and as clean as this. But this is a huge amount of work, and if we're trying to get lots of, I think, for me, it's like, let's work on the data, and then, I mean, if we could come up with a template like this that we can encourage people to, I think this is the perfect template in a way.
Right.
Their information is it's patchy. Sometimes they like they don't always have the same information. So for me, I think it's great if we can get all the information consistent.
Yeah.
But this type of photography is I think it's brilliant, and that would be a beautiful thing to work towards. So depending on the energy, if we get people that are really let's see how we pick up the energy on this. But if people then start to work on this, we can put together a template, or someone can put together a template where we say, look, take a photo like this and take a photo like that, and we could do it. It'd be really cool.
Right. Super.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to do multiple checkboxes, so maybe
Someone can.
let's drop down, and maybe in the comments we can add other dates, other months for collection.
Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah. We sort of you need to be able to check off two, no? January and February, or anyway.
Okay, we can figure
Yeah.
that out, how it will
Brilliant.
work. But as a starting point, I think we can keep it like this, and then towards the end, we can see in other comments, we can also add other time of collection.
What else? Yeah, I think we just need to, I mean, what would be cool is if people could actually, I think, that not making a pledge, but if people could sign up and say, yes, I'd really like to, and then we have a list of names of people who are doing it. And then just to maybe, Arjun, we can send out another mail and everyone says, yes, I've got this, I've got around, just let us know how you intend to contribute. Whether you already have an Excel data sheet, whether you feel that you can put data onto this Google sheet, how many species you have, if you have 20 species, if you have 100 species, just give us that information. Or maybe, again, we could send out a little questionnaire, Arjun, just so that people know which questions to answer. And then that would kick us off, because we're ready to go now, no?
Yeah.
We can get moving.
There's something on the chat again. Yeah, so we can definitely send out a questionnaire, but if people want to just say right now also, then that'd be a good starting point.
Yeah.
And after that, I mean, I can also send out a questionnaire afterwards for the others, depending on your level of comfort and availability of time.
Yeah, and I think we can put this back out. I think it's good to keep putting things back out on the general ERA website and encourage more people to do it. Now, if we can say that we got 12 people already working on this, then that would be amazing, no? And then maybe get more people saying, oh, there's some energy, and like have updates. Like I say, I think if we meet at the end of or beginning of October and see where we are, but even before that, if we can send out, in a week's time, if people can start contributing, then we can build that energy.
Yeah, I think we'll do some routine check-ins. Maybe we can do once in 15 days a check-in. Just
that'd be cool.
Especially if there are, some things are not understood. Something clarifications or something.
Okay.
But I just want to ask everyone else on the call: is there somebody who wants to volunteer right now, or you want to think about it and get back? Just let me know.
We would love to do it, Arjun. In fact, we are already doing the germination process. So we would love to contribute. And this is really helpful. Thanks, Paul. So we'll definitely circle back.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Tia.
No problem.
Faisal was saying that Somil and he will do for the Delhi region. Fantastic.
So this is Vinod here. So we would also love to do it. I'm
Fantastic.
representing the Forest Pay in Tiruvannamalai, so would
Ah.
love to do it.
Fantastic, Vinod. Super.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. We would love to also see, the processes from others, and that would happen in a month's time, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
yeah. We can have another sort of little workshopy meeting and just see how we're all getting on. But what do you mean by processes? Do you mean what
No,
do you
the-
mean by
yeah,
processes?
the filling of this data and
Experience
how
of filling
others
the
are
data.
doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
how others are doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dia. So I think anyway, since everyone will also be adding their data onto the same Google document, so everyone's data will be visible to others as well. So
Yeah.
I think that is one part already there. Okay. So
All right.
for now, we have Somil, Fazal, Dia, and Vinod. And I think everyone else will probably circle back later. I'll send out a form as well after this, and we can take a call. If you have, and in that, I'll also give the option that you already have an Excel sheet, and then we'll follow up with you for that.
Yeah.
Right?
Brilliant.
So,
Cool.
okay. If there's,
Nice.
is there anything else, or should we just close it now? I think we are early on time, but that's good.
I thought we said half an hour. We've done half an hour. What?
No, I scheduled for 45 minutes, anticipating a
Ah.
10-15 minute
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. See
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.